Hey, good afternoon, everybody. You won't see me, but I'm in the background. My name is Dan Elliott. I'm the information officer for the EOC for the Regional District of Central Kootenay based in Nelson, BC. In front of you, we have a representative from the BC Wildfire Service. We have Claire Allen, who is the management representative from the Southeast Fire Center. And from the Regional District of Central Kootenay, we have Dan Seguin. He is the RDCK Emergency Operations Center Director. So what we'll do for this media availability is both Claire and Dan will provide an update with regards to their wildfire situation throughout the Regional District of Central Kootenay, and then we'll take questions at the end. So we'll begin with Claire Allen and a update from BC Wildfire.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. The update that I'll provide today is for the West Kootenay region. And just for clarity, that is part of the Southeast Fire Center, which generally reaches from the Okanagan Highlands up to the Mica Dam, over to the Alberta Rockies border, and then down to the US border in the southeast corner of the province. In the West Kootenay region, and specifically the regional district of Central Kootenay, we've had 146 new fires detected in the last 7 days. And with that has come 1,800 lightning strikes reported in the area. Of this, there are 79 fires classified as out of control. And the good news of this is that 23 of those fires are no longer classified as out of control due to initial attack success. And that includes the cluster of fires that started in the Nelson area last Wednesday evening. Again, another good news story, 34 of those fires have been declared out in the last 7 days. So we have seen almost 11,000 hectares burn in this area in the last week. Of these fires, 95% are suspected to be lightning caused, and 9 fires are suspected to be human caused and are under investigation. The areas around Kootenay Lake, Arrow Lake, and Slocan Lake are the most impacted, and this accounts for about 80% of the wildfires in the West Kootenay region. Yesterday was a very challenging day to cap off a very challenging week of wildfire suppression. We did see a cold front move through the area, which resulted in some very sustained and very gusty winds, which challenged our wildfire suppression efforts throughout the Southeast Fire Center and the Central Kootenay region, and was responsible for significant growth on nearly all of the wildfires in the area. These winds, as well as dry forest fuel conditions from a sustained drought, as well as sustained extreme temperatures combined, were the main driver behind some of the aggressive growth that we saw yesterday, as well as in the last week. This wildfire, this cold front that passed through the area yesterday resulted in some tactics that were having to be implemented for the safety of first responders. So ground crews were forced to pull back to safe areas on many of the fires in the region. However, wherever possible, the wildland firefighter crews that were pulled back were replaced with structural protection crews who were able to do their work to protect critical infrastructure as well as communities in the area, and they worked throughout the overnight period. Variable visibility throughout the week has been challenging to safe flying conditions for both our fixed wing and rotary wing aviation fleet, which has limited the aviation resources to be effective on some of the fires. However, whenever it is possible, we do use aviation resources. So we're always checking the conditions, and we'll be able to deploy them as soon as we're able to operate them safely. Established and emerging fires will continue to be assessed, and resources are prioritized based on the current and forecasted impact to the wildland-urban interface in the Central Kootenay region, as well as to critical infrastructure. There have been 8 area restrictions implemented in the past 4 days, and that's in an interest of public safety as well as first responder safety. Looking ahead at the forecast, thankfully, we're not going to see a return to some of the extreme temperatures, returning to a bit more seasonal conditions. However, we do have warm conditions prevailing, and in the south area of the Southeast Fire Center, not seeing a huge reprieve in terms of precipitation. And as I drove in today to the Central Kootenay office here, there were certainly some convective cells as well as some precipitation, but some really gusty winds associated with that. We do have additional resources coming in to manage both the current fire situation, and we will continue to prioritize initial attack for new fires that occur on the landscape. With that, we do ask the members of the public to please do their part. Please adhere to all open fire prohibitions. Please educate yourselves on fire smart principles and what you can do around your property. Really recommend folks to check out firesmartbc.ca for those resources. And of course, given that we do still see some lightning in the area with the forecast today and tonight, there are any new fire starts, encourage members of the public to dial star 5555 on a cell phone or 1-800-663-5555, or use the BC Wildfire Service app to report any kind of new fire activity that they're seeing. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Dan.
Thanks, Claire. Well, we share the same context, so really it's been a challenging week for the regional district of Central Kootenay as well, and more so that last 24-hour period. In that last 24-hour period, the RDCK issued 4 evacuation orders between 7:30 last night and 1:30 a.m. this morning. And currently we have 6 evacuation orders in place, 4 in electoral area H around Slocan Lake, and 2 in electoral D on the northern end of Kootenay Lake. Those 6 evacuation orders are connected to the Elwyn Creek and Komonoko wildfire around the village of Silverton and surrounding area. The Mulvey Creek fire at the southern edge of the Valhalla Provincial Park, southwest of the village of Slocan. The Nemo Creek fire that is that's located on the west shore of Slocan Lake. The Wilson Creek fire that's between the communities of New Denver and Rosebery. And the Argenta Creek fire, which is Argenta and Johnson's Landing, which is on the northeast end of Kootenay Lake. And the Glacier Creek wildfire including Duncan Island, also near just north of Argenta. We've currently got 2 evacuation alerts in place in 2 electoral areas. And that's the first one is in Wilson Creek wildfire, village of New Denver up to Rosebery, and then the Ponderosa wildfire that's affecting the area around village of Slocan and village of Slocan itself. For a total, that gives us 557 properties on evacuation alert. 557 properties on evacuation order, and that encompasses 1,085 properties also on evacuation alert. So I'll just clarify there. So 557 properties on evacuation order and 1,085 properties on evacuation alert. So we have some pretty important messaging for both residents who are on alert or on order. So if you are on alert, it's really that time to be prepared. Prepare yourself, prepare your family accordingly. You have to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. So it's that time to get that grab and go bag ready that we talk about throughout the year for preparedness. Get it ready, get it at the door, get your important documents in there, any medications, prescriptions. Think about your animals, what you're going to do with them, your pet stock, livestock. Make sure that you have that family plan, that you understand what you're going to do if you needed to evacuate, if you were ordered to evacuate and leave at a moment's notice, where you're going to meet. All those preparatory things should really be in place at this point. And like my colleague said, it's a very dynamic time. The weather is really impacting these fires, so you have to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. For those who are on evacuation order, or if ever you do are asked to evacuate, what that means is that you have to leave you must leave that area immediately. And for those individuals, there are services that are available to you as emergency support services. And there's information that you can find on the RDCK website or on the Emergency Support Services website at ess.gov.bc.ca. And that's where you can register online. And I'll take an opportunity to also mention that if you are on alert at this point, you can still register. So you can go on and make sure that you have your BC Services card, and you can create a profile on ess.gov.bc.ca and have your BC Services card linked to your ESS profile. And that's just going to give you a little bit less to do should you be evacuated and require ESS services. So at this point right now, we have a reception center at the Caslow Legion that's open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Nakusp Community Complex, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And in Castlegar at Selkirk College from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. As well, you can self-register online at ess.gov.bc.ca. So, and of course, we hope everybody's staying safe out there and just paying attention to the various websites where we're trying to publish information as often as we can and when we're receiving it. Thanks, Dan.
Perfect. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Dan, for those updates. At this point in time, we'll take questions. If you'd like to ask a question, can you please raise your hand and I will select you. And then when I do select you, if you can just provide us your name and your affiliation and then ask your question, that would be appreciated. So if anybody would like to ask a question, just raise a hand for us, please. Okay. All right, Corey, yeah, please go ahead. You can mute yourself and ask a question for either Claire or Dan. Oh, Corey, yeah. There you go. Go ahead, Corey.
It wasn't allowing me to unmute myself. Hi, Corey Bullock with CBC News in Cranbrook. First of all, I'm just wondering, and either of you can answer this question. The fire north of New Denver, the newer start, the Wilson Creek, was that the result of the fire jumping the Slocan Lake? Some residents have posted saying that perhaps the fire jumped the lake, so just want to clarify that.
Hi, Corey, I'll answer that. Great question. It is presumed at this time that it was a spot fire from one of the existing fires in the area. Given the strong windy conditions last night, there were embers and residents reported there being ash, as well as the crews that responded to it. So it is very likely that it was a spot fire from one of the adjacent fires. Just a little bit of an update there. It is approximately 9 hectares in size. Crews responded very quickly to it yesterday in the late afternoon and early evening, and they were able to rapidly do structural protection on homes, thanks to the resources already being in the area responding to the existing fires. We saw that fire burn kind of up to the height of land and then creep a little bit downslope towards Highway 6. And there were some tactical evacuations that occurred yesterday evening for the adjacent properties, which then resulted in an evacuation order and alert put in by my colleagues here at RDCK.
Thanks, Claire. Storm, you have a question. Please unmute and ask your question to either Claire or Dan.
Hi there, Storm Lenny with Vista Radio. I was just wondering if you could let me know if there has been any structural losses at all in those communities at the moment.
I can answer that, but we can kind of both take this, seeing as it is a bit of a joint responsibility. So we do work in partnership. So BC Wildfire Service obviously has the boots out on the ground, as well as our structural protection crews. At this time, we do not have any confirmed structural impacts. However, given that it is a dynamic situation, we will be doing assessments in the coming days, and any structural impacts or loss will be reported to RDCK. And they will be in contact with residents. And, our thoughts are with those in impacted areas because we know they'd like that information as soon as possible. So we will be trying to get that information out to folks as soon as we can, give that credible information when we're able to do the assessments.
Yeah, I just echo my colleague's comment. It is in that partnership piece, and we do get the information from them. And should there be any of those reports, BC Wildfire would be communicating with us. And so we'd then be communicating with the affected residents. Obviously, it's a big question. When you're evacuated and you know that there's a fire that might have run through your community, it becomes the big question that we're asking ourselves as residents who are coming out of those evacuated areas. So we're trying to make sure that we've got the most accurate and credible information, as my colleague said, so that we can communicate that through the proper channels to the right people.
Okay, great. Am I able to ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead, Storm.
Okay, I was just wanting, I know that there was an information session held in Winlaw yesterday, and I saw some communication on that regarding some of the community members concerned and just curious about if there are any punitive measures for people that are defiant to the evacuation orders. And I'm just wondering if you can maybe elaborate if there is any sort of consequences to those people that aren't wanting to leave.
So, can you, I just missed the last part of your question. If there
Sorry,
are,
yeah, sorry, if there are any sort of consequences, like, to people that are refusing to leave when an order is placed.
okay. Yeah, I can begin by speaking to that. I mean, I think the first thing to understand is why we put orders in place, because what we prioritize, we work from the BC Emergency Management System, and we prioritize firstly, providing that safety to our responders, as well as attempting to save lives and protect lives. So those are our top two priorities, and that's why we end up putting those orders into place. When individuals do choose to stay, from our standpoint, they're taking a risk to their own safety, and that's why we are putting those orders in place and encouraging them to leave. So to my knowledge, thus far, there have not been any fines. It is part of the law that they could end up being fined for not fined for staying. So this is important to understand. It's not about them making a choice to stay. The fines can apply if an individual chooses to breach a security checkpoint that is preventing people from entering into the evacuation order areas for their safety and the safety of responders. If they do that, that's the point where fines could apply, but it's not about making a choice to stay. That said, if people have made an initial choice to stay and then for some reason need to leave the evacuation order area, they cannot return back in. If they try to get back in at that point, there is the possibility of fines being applied. And that comes from the RCMP would be the one that would be having that jurisdiction to do that, or the responsibility to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all from me.
Did anybody else have a question for Claire or Dan? Okay, that looks like the end of the questions, so we will end it there. We appreciate everybody taking the time to join us. If you have any further questions or you need any help with anything, you can contact our information officer, which is myself, at eocinfo@rdck.bc.ca. Oh, we do have one question here. Corey, yeah, go ahead. You had a follow-up question, Corey.
Yes, thank you. We heard from the mayor of Silverton this morning, and she had mentioned that the communication is a little confusing for residents right now, with so many different spaces for them to have to go to find out information. And as media, we realize you guys are very working very hard, and I'm just wondering what you say to these folks that maybe are saying that communication could be better right now.
Thanks for the question, Corey. I had a really lovely call with Mayor Gordon personally this morning. And now that there has been the evacuation order in Silverton, we recognize that folks primarily are in New Denver. So myself and Mayor Gordon work to establish a better system for those folks to be able to access physical information, recognizing that there may not be readily access to cell service or internet, or folks in the area may not be comfortable accessing that information, that we do update at least once a day on the BC Wildfire Service Wildfire of Note page. So there will be physical printouts available at Knox Hall for evacuated residents of Silverton in the coming days. And that's a place where they can come receive the information. And then on those information printouts, we call them the community bulletins. There is an email as well as a phone number that gives you direct access to the information officers associated with the incident management team who are overseeing the entire Slocan Lake complex. So really hoping to see some improvements in the days or coming days with that communication, being able to give the residents the reassurance that they need, that their information is accessible to them.
And I'll just add to that, from the RDCK standpoint, we're trying to publish as at least once a day onto our website, either a parallel information bulletin or echoing what our colleagues at BC Wildfire Service are saying, just to make sure that there's a consistency of messaging, and also to make sure that depending on the website that people are looking at, that they are finding the information that they're looking for that reassurance.
Are there any other questions at this time? Okay, not seeing any hands, nobody in the chat. Once again, thanks everybody for taking the time to join us. That will do it for Claire and Dan. Yourself a good day. Thank you very much.